Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine having like a roadmap to navigating your own inner world, especially when it feels like a storm in there. We've all been there, haven't we? That moment when, a bad mood seems to just appear out of nowhere, or maybe it's a recurring pattern of frustrating thoughts that just won't let up. You feel overwhelmed, maybe stuck, like you're in this loop of negative emotions that seems, well, impossible to break. That's exactly the territory we're exploring today. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack a really transformative resource, Mind Over Mood, change how you feel by changing the way you think. It's by Dennis Greenberger and Christine Padesky. And this isn't just another self-help book off the shelf. It's really a cornerstone text in cognitive therapy, a practical manual deeply rooted in rigorous clinical work, and the fact that it's sold over, 150,000 copies, plus a foreword by Aaron T-Beck himself.
The father of CBT?
Right. Exactly. It speaks volumes about its credibility, its impact, and just how useful it is. It's clearly helped a lot of people. So the core promise of this deep dive, and it mirrors the book itself, is actually both powerful and liberating. There's this profound, undeniable connection, often overlooked, I think, between our thoughts and our feelings. And here's the game-changing insight the book offers. By actively learning to change the way we think, we actually possess this remarkable ability to fundamentally alter our emotional experience. So this deep dive, it aims to give you a shortcut, basically, to being really well-informed on a powerful, evidence-based approach to, cultivating your own well-being.
It really is illuminating. What Mind Over Mood does so well is take decades of clinical research, complex psychological principles, and just distills them into remarkably clear, actionable strategies. It's not about getting bogged down in jargon or theory. It's about practical exercises, tools you can apply, like right away. The brilliance really lies in its empowerment. It equips you to become your own guide, to truly understand and proactively manage your inner landscape. It makes these abstract psychological concepts feel real, lived.
That's such a crucial distinction. It's a highly practical workbook, isn't it? Designed for direct use. So what can you anticipate from our deep dive today? Well, we're going to walk you through the essential concepts of cognitive therapy, as presented so masterfully in Mind Over Mood. We'll explore the range of practical tools it offers, tools that really demystify these complex emotional processes. And maybe most compellingly, we'll get into the real-life journeys of individuals who navigated some really challenging emotions using these exact techniques, hopefully offering you some genuine aha moments and actionable insights along the way. Our aim is to make these profound ideas accessible, engaging, strip away the jargon, reveal the tangible power they hold for your own life. Okay, let's lay the absolute groundwork of Mind Over Mood. The book kicks off with a fundamental principle. It seems straightforward, maybe, but it carries immense weight. Our feelings, our moods, they aren't just random static. They're not solely dictated by what happens to us either. Critically, they are heavily influenced by our thoughts about what happens. It's not just the event, but fundamentally how we interpret it. And that distinction, that's where our power to change really lies.
That's a huge reframe for so many people, a really profound one. The book uses this beautiful analogy in the prologue, the oyster and the grain of sand. You know this one.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so the grain of sand, that represents an irritant. A problem, a challenge in life, something difficult. Now, for the oyster, that irritant can just cause ongoing discomfort. Or, through an internal protective process, applying layers of this stuff called nacre, it can transform that irritant into something exquisite, a pearl. And similarly, the challenges, the grains of sand in our lives, they aren't inherently good or bad. Their impact on us often depends on our internal processing. They can lead to sustained negative feelings, sure. Or with the right cognitive and behavioral skills, they can be transformed, turned into something valuable, something that actually contributes to our growth, our well-being. The skills taught in Mind Over Mood are precisely those protective coatings, really, designed to help you cultivate those pearls.
That analogy perfectly captures that shift in perspective, doesn't it? Moving from just being a passive recipient of whatever life throws at you to becoming an active participant in shaping your own emotional reality. But the book doesn't just stop there. Chapter 2 introduces what it calls the interconnected web, 5 areas dynamically interacting that profoundly influence our mood. And it's crucial to get this. It's not a simple A causes B causes C chain. It's more like a continuous looping feedback system. Each element impacts all the others.
Exactly. And understanding this web is key because it reveals multiple points where you can actually intervene, leverage points. So these 5 areas are, first, situations. These are the external events, circumstances, maybe triggers you encounter. Second, thoughts. That's your interpretations, your beliefs, the internal dialogue you have about those situations. Third, moods. Your emotional state, sadness, anger, anxiety, joy, whatever it might be. Fourth, physical reactions. Those bodily sensations that often come with moods, rapid heartbeat, muscle tension, maybe a burst of energy, or feeling drained. And finally, fifth, behaviors. Your actions, your reactions, even maybe your inactions in response to all of the above. The power of seeing this web isn't just that it shows everything's connected, it's that it reveals multiple places you can start. For someone feeling totally paralyzed by depression, sometimes the quickest way in isn't trying to change a thought directly. Sometimes it's just scheduling one small accomplishment activity, a behavior, which then subtly shifts their mood, and maybe then subsequently their thoughts. It breaks the cycle from a different angle.
Right, it gives you options. Let's bring this interconnected web to life with some really compelling examples from the book. Take Marissa. Her life story included some profound negative experiences, like being sexually molested. Understandably, this fostered deep feelings of being unlovable, ignored, chronically depressed. These intense moods then drove her behaviors, like seeking out relationships, hoping they'd finally make her feel cared for. But here's the really critical, insightful twist. Even when something objectively positive happened, her ingrained thought patterns would just hijack the situation. For instance, her colleague, Julio, gave her a genuine compliment on her work. Okay, positive event. But instead of feeling validated or pleased, her automatic thought was, oh, I'm probably just getting compliments because it's convenient and he wants me to work extra time. See how that negative interpretation immediately swung her right back to feeling unlovable, disregarded? It basically neutralized a positive external event. It starkly illustrates how a powerful thought can dictate a feeling, regardless of the situation's actual nature.
Yeah, that case really reveals the pervasive nature of that self-criticism, those deeply held negative beliefs. It's truly fascinating how Marissa's internal narrative was just so potent it completely overrode an objective positive event. It highlights our brain's tendency, often trying to protect us, maybe, from perceived threats to default to the most catastrophic or self-deprecating interpretation, even when external signals are positive. This isn't just simple negative thinking, it's like a deep-seated bias we need to actively counteract. Shows how entrenched these patterns can become.
Totally. And then there's Ben. Ben, 68 years old, grappling with a cascade of really significant losses. His beloved dog Louie died. He got a personal cancer diagnosis. And his children were naturally growing up, becoming independent. Now, the situations were undeniably challenging, right? But it was his thoughts about these situations that truly amplified his suffering. He started thinking things like, my children and grandchildren don't need me anymore, and everyone I care about is dying. These thoughts didn't just reflect his sadness, they dramatically deepened it. They initiated a severe downward spiral into profound depression. And his behaviors mirrored this internal state. He stopped calling friends, felt physically exhausted all the time, abandoned golf, which he used to love, further entrenching his isolation and despair.
That's a textbook example, really, of how negative thoughts can create this self-reinforcing feedback loop. It just exacerbates and prolongs a depressive state. It underscores that point again. Your mind isn't just passively receiving events, it's an active interpreter. And those interpretations profoundly shape your reality. Ben's example shows how that internal narrative can take initial sadness and just transform it into debilitating depression, which then leads to behaviors that further confirm the negative thoughts. You get trapped in the cycle.
So the powerful takeaway for us here is, understanding this interconnected web means we have multiple entry points, multiple ways to potentially break into this cycle and influence our own experience rather than just feeling trapped by it. Another vivid example is Linda. She's flying, okay? Suddenly experiences a rapid heartbeat, starts sweating profusely. Now, these are common physiological signs of anxiety. But Linda's thoughts with these sensations were immediately catastrophic. I'm having a heart attack. I'm going to die. The severe misinterpretation of her physical reactions instantly triggered an intense panic attack. It's a perfect illustration of how physical sensations can directly feed into negative, distorted thoughts, which then fuel an escalating mood, leading to even more intense physical reactions. It's like a perfect storm created by the mind's interpretation.
Absolutely, a classic demonstration of that dynamic interaction within the 5 areas. The physical sensation, rapid heartbeat, triggers a catastrophic thought, heart attack, which then intensifies the mood, panic, and that panic in turn amplifies the physical sensations. It creates this self-reinforcing, vicious circle. It's not just A, then B, then C, it's a loop. And recognizing where you are in that loop, understanding its components, that's the crucial first step to disrupting it.
Okay, so we've grasped that foundational idea, how our thoughts shape feelings, the whole interconnectedness thing. Now we embark on maybe the most crucial part of this journey, pinpointing those elusive hot thoughts that really drive our emotional storms. Mind over mood guides us to identify what it calls automatic thoughts. These are those spontaneous cognitions, could be words, images, even fragmented memories that just kind of pop into our minds all day long. They're often fleeting, right? Almost like subconscious whispers. We might not even consciously register them. Yet they carry significant, often unseen emotional weight.
Yeah, the book provides a really excellent analogy for this. It likens automatic thoughts to wires that carry electricity, with our emotions being the electricity itself. So hot thoughts are those specific automatic thoughts that carry the strongest emotional charge. They're like overloaded wires that spark and ignite our most intense moods. They're the ones that really get our anxiety buzzing, or our anger flaring, or our sadness sinking deep. Becoming keenly aware of these specific hot thoughts is the first, absolutely indispensable step toward, well, emotional mastery.
And the importance of cultivating that awareness. You really can't overstate it. They're like indispensable clues, almost like forensic evidence, for understanding why we react emotionally the way we do in different situations. It's like discovering the hidden levers that control your emotional responses, which offers this amazing opportunity for intervention and change. Now, to systematically capture and analyze these fleeting thoughts, Mind Over Mood introduces a central, incredibly powerful tool in cognitive therapy, the thought record. This is essentially a structured written exercise. It's designed to help you identify those automatic thoughts and eliminate their direct connection to your moods and the specific situations you're in.
The basic thought record starts with 3 essential columns. They're designed to create a clear snapshot of your experience at that moment. First column, situation. Here, you meticulously describe the objective context. Who was involved? What was happening? When and where did it take place? What were you doing right before your mood shifted? Details are key here for later analysis. Second column, moods. You identify the specific emotions you felt: anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, whatever. Crucially, you then rate the intensity of each mood, usually 0 to 100%. This quantification is surprisingly powerful. It lets you track changes, gives you a concrete measure of the emotional impact. And the third column, automatic thoughts, images. This is where you write down as accurately as you can the precise thoughts or images that flashed through your mind just before you started to feel that mood. The core task here is to pinpoint the hot thought, that single most emotionally charged thought that seems to be driving the lion's share of your emotional intensity. This is often where people first start to notice the rapid, sometimes really distorted nature of their internal narratives.
Let's dive into a classic case study from the book that illustrates this process so vividly. Vic's supervisor compliment. Okay, so Vic is just doing a routine thing, handing a monthly report to his supervisor. Seems positive, right? Or at least neutral, a normal professional interaction. But what happened next was totally counterintuitive.
Right.
His supervisor starts reading the report right there. It's 4:30 p.m. And immediately, Vic's moods spike. Nervous, 80%. Scared, 90%.
Right.
What does that tell us?
Well, this case really raises a critical question, doesn't it? How often do our automatic thoughts, especially these hot thoughts, lead us to just profoundly misinterpret reality, even when the external situation objectively seems positive or neutral? In Vic's case, the external event was potentially positive recognition, yet his internal experience was intense dread.
Exactly. And this is where the deeper insight comes out. It's not about what happened, a simple compliment, potentially. It's about what Vic thought about what happened. That's what drove his feelings. When prompted to articulate what was going through his mind just before the nervousness hit, his automatic thoughts just tumbled out. Why is she reading it here? Which quickly escalated into this cascade of anxious predictions. What am I afraid might happen? She'll be unhappy with my sales. I bet the others did better this month. And then, the true hot thoughts ignited, revealing these core insecurities. What does this say about me if it is true? This means I'm no good. And what might happen if this is true? I'll get fired to get a pay cut. He also reported feeling irritated, thinking, I never get credit for how hard I work. It means other people are always critical and I'll never get ahead. It's not fair. The sequence shows a classic pattern, doesn't it? Catastrophizing, self-blame, where a potentially positive event gets warped into a personal failure waiting to happen.
It's truly fascinating to see how a seemingly positive or neutral situation can be immediately reinterpreted through that lens of deep-seated insecurities and, well, cognitive distortions. Vic's automatic thoughts weren't really about the report's content or the compliment itself. They were about catastrophic self-judgment, mind-reading his supervisor's intentions, this profound fear of failure. These hot thoughts directly ignited his intense nervousness and fear. This example powerfully highlights the immediate, often unconscious power of these fleeting internal thoughts to shape our entire emotional experience. The first step, as Vic learned, is simply catching them, just noticing them.
Okay, so we've developed this crucial skill identifying those automatic thoughts, especially the really emotionally charged hot thoughts. Mick, the next indispensable step in cognitive therapy is to rigorously evaluate them, check their accuracy, their helpfulness. And this isn't about ignoring reality or just forcing some kind of fake positivity. It's about becoming like a meticulous cognitive detective, actively searching for and weighing all the available evidence that either supports or maybe more often contradicts those initial, frequently negative interpretations. It's about seeking a more balanced truth.
Precisely. And this is where the thought record evolves, it expands. We add 2 new critical columns designed to foster exactly that investigative mindset. First, evidence that supports the hot thought. In this column, you list any genuinely factual evidence, objective data, observed behaviors, concrete outcomes, things that logically support your initial negative thought. This isn't about validating the feeling necessarily, but acknowledging any factual basis if it exists. Second, and this is often more revealing, evidence that does not support the hot thought. Here, you rigorously list all factual evidence, including specific experiences you recall from memory that actively challenges or contradicts your hot thought. The core goal here isn't just swapping a negative thought for a positive one. That can feel forced, unauthentic sometimes. Instead, it's about cultivating a more realistic, nuanced, and ultimately balanced perspective by scrupulously examining all available evidence, both for and against your initial interpretation. It's about moving beyond assumptions to objective reality.
This truly is where the intellectual detective work begins, isn't it? Where you transition into becoming the scientist of your own mind, testing hypotheses rather than blindly accepting them. Let's revisit Ben's profound sadness. Remember, it was at 80% intensity, driven by his hot thought, the kids and grandkids don't need me anymore. When he initially tried to find evidence supporting this thought, he could only muster these subjective interpretations like, oh, they all would have had a better time if I hadn't been there today, or they didn't pay any attention to me all day. This highlights a common cognitive distortion, mental filter, right? Where you selectively only pay attention to information that confirms your negative belief.
Right. And this process actively encourages critical thinking. It compels you to question your assumptions, consider alternative viewpoints, rather than just accepting your initial, often maybe self-serving or fear-driven interpretations as absolute truth. And when Ben diligently really searched for evidence not supporting his thought, the entire picture began to shift dramatically. He recalled his daughter specifically asking him to look at some vegetables in their garden, seeking his expertise. His daughter and son-in-law had purposefully invited him for Thanksgiving, valuing his presence. They even asked him to help with a home project, implying a need for his help. His 5-year-old granddaughter laughed with him often throughout the day and even fell asleep comfortably in his lap, showing affection and connection. His son-in-law had him build shelves and cabinets, a clear request for his skills. The cumulative weight of this contradictory factual evidence just became undeniable.
And the impact of this systematic evidence gathering was profound. Ben's realization that the objective facts simply did not support his negative, pervasive thought. It led to a tangible, significant reduction in his sadness. It's a powerful, non-magical demonstration of how actively confronting your internal narratives with objective reality can fundamentally shift your mood. It's about building a robust case against your own worst assumptions. Another profoundly impactful example comes from Marissa and her intense suicidal thoughts. Remember her hot thought, an overwhelming declaration. I'm so empty inside, I just have to die. The pain is unbearable. Killing myself is the only way to get rid of the pain. I've tried everything. Psychotherapy, therapists, medications, nothing helped. This is an incredibly absolute, all-encompassing thought, typical of severe depression.
Yeah, and for someone experiencing such extreme distress, these thoughts feel like irrefutable facts, undeniable truths about their reality. But her therapist, Kate, using these principles from mind over mood, helped Marissa see that this extreme conclusion was, in fact, an interpretation, not a cold, objective fact. The evidence not supporting her hot thought became her lifeline, really. The pain, while severe, had demonstrably decreased at various times, indicating it wasn't constant or entirely unbearable. She had, in fact, experienced moments of enjoyment, even if they felt fleeting. Her therapist consistently saw and articulated positive qualities in her, reinforcing her inherent worth. And Marissa herself recalled instances when she had laughed, directly contradicting that absolute claim of unbearable pain and emptiness.
This case strikingly demonstrates the critical, literally life-saving role of evidence-based thinking in addressing severe distress, questioning even seemingly absolute negative conclusions. It illustrates that even when thoughts feel overwhelming, all-consuming, utterly true, there is almost always counter-evidence to be found if you are trained and willing to look for it. Offering another perspective, a crack in that wall of despair. And let's circle back quickly to Linda and her panic attack on the airplane. Her hot thought, I'm having a heart attack, I'm going to die. Fear at a crippling 98%. The evidence she initially used to support this was, my heart is racing, I'm sweating. These are two characteristics of a heart attack. Cool. Well, symptomatically true, this is a classic example of catastrophizing, isn't it? Leaping to the worst possible conclusion based on limited data, confusing correlation with causation.
It's a common and understandable tendency, yeah. Jumping to the most catastrophic interpretation, particularly when the body is signaling distress. However, when Linda diligently began to list the evidence not supporting her hot thought, she recalled crucial, often overlooked information. She remembered. A rapid heartbeat and sweating can also be characteristic and entirely benign symptoms of anxiety. Her doctor had explicitly told her, the heart's a muscle. Using a muscle vigorously isn't dangerous, therefore a rapid heartbeat itself isn't inherently dangerous. Crucially, a rapid heartbeat doesn't automatically mean she's having a heart attack. She'd had similar sensations before in airports, on planes, and her heart always returned to normal. Furthermore, she recognized that in the past, her heartbeat had indeed returned to normal when she consciously did things like read a magazine, practice deep breathing, or intentionally shifted to non-catastrophic ways of thinking.
This is incredibly empowering. By systematically questioning her hot thought with factual evidence, actively reinterpreting those alarming physical sensations, Linda was able to significantly reduce her anxiety. The power here wasn't in wishing the symptoms away, but in fundamentally changing the meaning she assigned to them. It's about not letting your initial fear-driven interpretation be the only story you tell yourself. Instead, building a more accurate, less threatening understanding of your internal experience. It's the journey from assumption to informed reality. Okay, so we've mastered identifying automatic thoughts, especially those intense, hot thoughts. We've honed our detective skills gathering evidence for and against them. What comes next in this powerful process? Well, the logical progression, the next truly transformative step, is to leverage all that evidence you've meticulously gathered to formulate alternative, more balanced thoughts. These new thoughts aren't designed just to be positive, but to be more accurate, more realistic, to ultimately better fit all the evidence you've unearthed, which leads to a profound reduction in your emotional distress.
Right. And to make this step concrete, the thought record expands one more time, adding 2 additional vital columns that bring the process to a powerful conclusion. First, the 6th column, alternative balanced thoughts. Here, you actively construct a new thought, maybe a reframe, a different interpretation that reflects a more realistic and balanced perspective, integrating all the evidence you gathered. Crucially, you then rate how much you believe this newly formulated thought. Again, 0 to 100% scale. This self-assessment helps track your internal shift. And finally, the 7th column, rate moods now. This is where you go back and re-rate your initial mood, your sadness, anger, fear on that 0-100% scale, to immediately observe the tangible impact of adopting this balanced thinking. That immediate change in mood is often a really powerful reinforcement.
This is where the power of shifting perspective truly shines, I think. It highlights a critical point. This isn't about denying reality or just painting everything rosy. It's about expanding your viewpoint to see a situation from multiple angles, allowing for a more nuanced, less emotionally charged, and ultimately more accurate understanding. This isn't positive thinking in some naive sense. It's about rigorously pursuing accurate thinking. Let's revisit Vic and Judy's relationship. Vic was consumed by anger towards Judy, remember, because her facial expression suggested to him she was unhappy or unsupportive of his AA attendance. His initial hot thoughts were accusatory, highly negative. She's not supportive, she nags me, she doesn't appreciate how hard I work. He was furious, rated his anger really high.
But when Vic was guided to examine the evidence that didn't support those hot thoughts, he started recalling some crucial, easily overlooked details. He remembered Judy was actually feeling unwell that day, so her expression might just have been physical discomfort. She also remembered it was her sister's birthday that could easily account for a contemplative or slightly sad look, totally unrelated to him. Beyond that, Vic recalled Judy had consistently attended Al-Anon meetings for a year, demonstrating active support for his sobriety. She often seemed genuinely happy when he came home, consistently expressed her love, often said how much she preferred it when they weren't fighting. These facts painted a very different picture than his initial angry assumptions.
This is where the profound impact of developing alternative perspectives becomes so clear. Based on this new, comprehensive evidence, Vic could formulate alternative, much more balanced thoughts. He came to believe, okay, the look on Judy's face was because she remembered her sister's birthday. He gave that a 100% belief rating. He also concluded, with 100% belief, she is supportive of my AA attendance and wants me to stay sober. And finally, he embraced the thought, she does care about me, with 80% belief. The result of this cognitive shift, his initial intense anger just decreased significantly. He moved from assuming the worst about his wife to understanding the situation with far greater accuracy, empathy, transforming their interaction.
It's such a clear and powerful demonstration. Systematically evaluating evidence can completely transform your interpretation of a situation and consequently your whole emotional response. It highlights that the solution wasn't about changing Judy's behavior, it was about fundamentally changing Vic's perception of her and their relationship. Shows the internal power of perspective.
Totally. Let's check in on Ben's Thanksgiving breakthrough again. His initial hot thought stuck. The kids and grandkids don't need me anymore, plunging him into 80% sadness. But after that diligent process of gathering contradictory evidence, he was able to construct a far more balanced, realistic thought. Okay, even though my children and grandchildren don't need me in the same ways they used to, they still genuinely enjoy my company and frequently ask for my advice. This thought acknowledges the reality of their independence while reframing his continued value.
And with that crucial shift in thought, Ben's sadness rating dropped dramatically, from 80% way down to a much more manageable 30%. Now, this isn't about eradicating all sadness that would be unrealistic given his situation. It's about making it manageable, reducing its debilitating power, allowing him to move forward instead of staying paralyzed by that overwhelming feeling. It perfectly illustrates how reframing thoughts leads to a tangible reduction in emotional distress, creating space for acceptance, maybe even moments of joy.
And finally, let's revisit Linda's fear of flying. Initial hot thought, I'm having a heart attack, I'm going to die. Crippling, 98% fear. After carefully examining the evidence, she could develop an alternative, far more balanced thought. My heart is racing, and I'm sweating because I'm anxious, I'm nervous about being on an airplane. My doctor assured me a rapid heartbeat isn't necessarily dangerous, and in all likelihood, my heart will return to normal in just a few minutes. She rated her belief in this new, more accurate thought at a strong 85%.
And this cognitive shift proved incredibly powerful for her. Linda's fear plummeted from 98% down to a much more manageable 25%. This reduction allowed her to regain agency, manage her anxiety much more effectively, not let her fear dictate her life choices. It powerfully highlights how even in situations that feel physically overwhelming, totally out of control, consciously changing the cognitive interpretation can dramatically reduce both the emotional and the physical impact. It's about empowering yourself to take control of your internal narrative, recognizing that sensations don't automatically equal catastrophe.
You know, it's one thing to kind of intellectualize this connection between thoughts and feelings, even to get pretty good at identifying and challenging thoughts on paper with a thought record. But mind over mood really emphasizes that cognitive therapy isn't just about changing your internal thinking patterns. It's critically about translating that internal cognitive work into external action. It's about changing behaviors and actively testing those newly formed balanced beliefs through real-world experiments. This is where insights really solidify into lasting change.
This is absolutely where the rubber meets the road. It highlights that understanding is a powerful first step, sure, but it's not enough to just think differently. You often have to act differently to truly solidify those new neural pathways, challenge those deeply ingrained fears. The book places significant emphasis on behavioral experiments. These are highly structured, deliberate activities designed specifically to test the validity of your balanced thoughts and actively challenge old, often limiting beliefs. They're typically conceived as small, manageable steps you can take, designed to generate new, corrective experiences.
And the fundamental why behind these experiments is huge. They serve to dramatically increase your genuine belief in your new, balanced thoughts. And maybe even more importantly, they provide you with novel experiences that directly contradict those old, ingrained negative beliefs. This hands-on experiential learning, that's how real, sustainable, profound change truly takes root. Beyond these individual experiments, the book introduces action plans. These are systematic, structured blueprints designed to proactively solve identified problems. They help you set a clear time to begin and provide a framework for rigorously recording your progress.
Yeah, the action plan worksheet in the book is incredibly practical. It breaks down potentially overwhelming goals into manageable steps. Its core components include defining your clear goal, outlining the specific, tangible action plan steps needed to achieve it, setting a definite time to begin, proactively anticipating possible problems that might crop up, strategizing strategies to overcome problems, and finally, dedicating a section for a progress report to meticulously track your success and learn from challenges and triumphs. It's a very systematic way to move from abstract insight to tangible, measurable change.
Let's look at some powerful real-world examples from the book that exemplify this crucial bridge from thought to action. Remember Michelle, her deep-seated fear of speaking Spanish imperfectly. Her old belief, a classic all-or-nothing thinking example, was that if she spoke Spanish without being absolutely perfect, she'd inevitably get negative reactions, maybe even ridicule. This belief just paralyzed her.
Her experiment was brilliant in its elegant simplicity, really. She actively challenged this core belief by deliberately initiating conversations in Spanish in everyday situations, ordering food, asking for directions, engaging in simple small talk. And what she consistently discovered was the exact opposite of her fear. People were overwhelmingly polite, patient, encouraging. This direct corrective experience systematically increased her confidence. It powerfully demonstrated that her fears were largely unfounded. Each small positive interaction just chipped away at that old, limiting, perfectionistic belief, replacing it with the reality of, well, human kindness and acceptance.
It's a classic illustration, isn't it? How often our worst fears about how others will react are just utterly unfounded in reality. Then there's Ben's Thanksgiving reconnection, a beautiful example of behavioral change. His new belief, solidified after challenging his negative automatic thoughts, was that his children and grandchildren still genuinely valued his company.
Right. So instead of withdrawing and isolating himself, which was his old depressive pattern of behavior when he felt down, Ben made a conscious, deliberate choice to engage. Proactively. He actively participated in family conversations, initiated interactions, asked for advice, made himself visibly available for connection. This wasn't just thinking differently, it was actively participating in a new, healthier way. And he found his new belief powerfully emotionally confirmed through these interactions. His mood improved not just because he thought they needed him, but because he experienced their need and genuine enjoyment of his company, created a positive feedback loop.
And Linda's fear of flying, another compelling case of putting principles into practice. After all her meticulous thought work about her heart rate not meaning heart attack, she needed that ultimate step, testing the belief in the potentially anxiety-provoking real world.
And she embraced this challenge wholeheartedly. Linda actively scheduled more flights to truly test her new belief about her heart rate and her ability to manage anxiety. For each flight, she meticulously prepared, rehearsed her balanced thoughts, practiced controlled breathing, actively planned distractions to manage any rising panic. Each flight became a structured behavioral experiment, allowing her to systematically demonstrate her growing control over her anxiety. She even used a frequent flyer ticket to ensure repeated exposure, building mastery. The result was transformative. Her anxiety became significantly less frequent, less intense. She could successfully manage her fear, leading to much greater freedom and confidence in her life. This powerfully demonstrates that true, lasting change often emerges from these small, consistent, courageous steps. Each experiment, no matter how minor it seems, builds a stronger belief in the alternative thought and directly contributes to profound, lasting change.
We also saw impressive progress in Vic's marriage improvement and anger management. His goals were clear, tangible. Improve his marriage, significantly reduce his frequent anger outbursts.
And his action plan was meticulously specific, behaviorally oriented. For improving the marriage, he set a concrete goal. Do 5 positive things for Judy each day. Things like offering genuine compliments, proactively helping with chores, simply initiating a warm conversation. He discovered doing these actions not only made him feel good, effective, but also elicited clear, positive feedback and appreciation from Judy, reinforcing the new behaviors. For managing anger, he implemented a plan. Stop outbursts by taking a deliberate 3-minute break. Physically step away. Then use the thought record to challenge his hot thoughts before re-engaging to discuss the problem calmly. He also committed to actively engaging in conversations with Judy, consciously rating his anger levels and critically truly listening to her perspective without interruption or defensiveness. These direct, consistent behavioral changes led to remarkably tangible, sustained improvements in their relationship dynamics.
And the results were profoundly positive. Vic successfully learned to handle challenging situations without exploding in anger, which dramatically improved the quality of the stability of his marriage. This wasn't just hypothetical, it was a real, lived transformation, evidenced by his actions, Judy's feedback. Finally, let's look at Marissa's progress with her job and her pervasive feelings of hopelessness. She'd been battling severe depression, recurring suicidal thoughts, and her job performance was clearly suffering, putting her employment at risk.
Her action plan was concrete, focused on breaking down overwhelming problems into manageable steps. She committed to talking openly with her supervisor about her stress, expressing her desire to keep her job a courageous step itself. She arranged for a friend, Maggie, to review her work and provide guidance. And crucially, she implemented a simple but effective strategy for her chronic lateness, setting an alarm to ensure she got to work on time. She diligently implemented these strategies. Her supervisor appreciated her proactive efforts, her commitment. She received valuable feedback on her work. And as a direct result of taking these tangible actions, her feelings of hopelessness and her suicidal thoughts significantly diminished. The act of taking control, even in seemingly small, consistent ways, led to profound emotional and practical shifts, proving that behavior can absolutely lead the way to improved mood and thought patterns.
This really demonstrates the power of small, consistent steps, doesn't it? Each experiment, no matter how minor it seems, builds a stronger belief in the alternative thought and contributes to lasting change. It's about moving from just thinking about change to actively living it, integrating cognitive insights with behavioral momentum to create this virtuous cycle. So far, our deep dive has really explored the, let's say, surface layers of our minds, focusing on those spontaneous, often fleeting automatic thoughts. But mind over mood doesn't stop there. It takes us even deeper into the architecture of our psyche, explaining that these automatic thoughts are often merely the symptomatic manifestations of something far more fundamental, more pervasive, our underlying beliefs, which the book refers to as assumptions, or even more profoundly, core beliefs.
Yeah, think of it this way. If automatic thoughts are like the visible flowers and weeds in a garden, the immediate cognitive outputs we notice, then core beliefs are the deep, hidden roots from which those surface thoughts spring. They are the fundamental, often unexamined ideas we hold about ourselves, about other people, and about the world around us. These deeply ingrained beliefs act as this powerful filter, shaping how we interpret every single experience we encounter, often operating outside the realm of our conscious awareness, which makes them particularly influential and, frankly, resistant to change.
And to meticulously uncover these deeper roots, the book introduces an incredibly powerful, almost therapeutic excavation technique. It's called the downward arrow technique. It's a systematic method designed to trace a seemingly surface-level automatic thought all the way back to its core foundational belief. By repeatedly asking these probing questions like, okay, what does this say about me? Or what does this mean after an automatic thought? It's a process of relentless, gentle self-inquiry.
It's truly like peeling back layers of an onion, exactly. Each question brings you closer to the core. For instance, let's look back at Vic's anxieties about sales quotas. His initial automatic thought was, everyone will be able to meet these quotas but me. Okay. Using the downward arrow, the therapist might gently probe, okay, Vic, and what does this say or mean about other people? Vic responds, well, they are able to do the work more easily than I am. The therapist then asks, pushing a bit deeper, and what does that say or mean about them, maybe in comparison to you? Vic says, they are competent. And finally, the crucial question that unearths the hidden root. And what does all of this say or mean about you, Vic? And the core belief surfaces, I am inadequate, or maybe I am incompetent. This is the foundational belief that subtly yet powerfully fuels his anxieties about performance, influencing how he sees every professional challenge.
That's incredibly insightful. It highlights how a single automatic thought can lead directly to this pervasive self-identity. It's like rewriting the foundational code of how you perceive yourself and the world that's profoundly powerful. And it's not just about self-perception, right? The downward arrow technique can also reveal deeply held core beliefs about the world itself. Take Marissa's anxiety before that evaluation meeting. Her automatic thought was laced with dread. I've made a mistake again. He's going to fire me.
Right. Following the downward arrow, her therapist asks, okay, and what does this say or mean about the world and how it typically operates? Marissa's response reveals this pessimistic worldview. Bad things are always happening to me. Further pressing, the therapist continues, and what does that say or mean about the world if bad things are always happening to you? Marissa concludes. The world is hard and punishing. And then the underlying core belief emerges. The world works against me. This profound belief helps explain why she often feels like a helpless victim of circumstance, even in neutral situations, perceiving threats, negativity, even where none objectively exist. It's the lens through which she filtered all her experiences.
And the genius of cognitive therapy, I think, is that just like those fleeting automatic thoughts, these deeply ingrained core beliefs, no matter how pervasive or long-held they feel, can also be rigorously tested for evidence. This involves a comprehensive, almost lifelong audit, looking for experiences throughout one's entire life, from childhood right up to the present, that either support or actively contradict the core belief. It's about building a new, more accurate, maybe more compassionate historical narrative of your own life.
This is truly the so what question for your entire life experience, isn't it? Core beliefs are the fundamental lens through which you see everything. And changing them, shifting them, can fundamentally alter your reality and your emotional landscape. Consider Marissa's I'm unlovable belief. This was a profound, deeply painful, long-standing core belief that had shadowed so much of her life.
Mhm. When she began that painstaking yet incredibly liberating process of collecting evidence that did not support this belief, it was truly eye-opening for her, almost a paradigm shift. She acknowledged the undeniable love of her husband, Carl. She recognized the love she received from her children. She recalled receiving genuine invitations to lunch from colleagues at work, warm greetings from others, the consistent presence of friends and family who clearly loved and cared for her. Through consistently collecting this counter-evidence and actively tracking her confidence in the old belief over time on a numerical scale, her belief in "I am unlovable" significantly steadily decreased. Simultaneously, her confidence in a new, more accurate, much more balanced core belief, "I'm lovable," steadily increased over weeks and months, charting tangible progress on her journey of self-acceptance.
And similarly, for Vic's I'm inadequate belief, which had plagued his professional and personal life for so long, when he actively challenged this deeply ingrained core belief, he found just a wealth of evidence that meticulously did not support it. His children loved him unconditionally. His wife deeply loved him. His children had grown into well-adjusted adults. He had genuine friends, felt accepted at church. He was performing well at his demanding job. Customers frequently expressed satisfaction. He had a proven ability to maintain long-term, meaningful relationships. He'd successfully maintained significant periods of sobriety. He was demonstrably improving at controlling his anger. His relationship with Judy was closer, more fulfilling than ever. And his boss had explicitly told him he was effectively managing his territory. Just fact after fact.
The long-term impact of this deeper core belief work is truly profound. Shifting these foundational beliefs isn't just about feeling better for a day or a week. It leads to a much more stable, resilient, lasting improvement in mood, because you are fundamentally changing the very foundation, the operating system of how you perceive yourself and your place in the world. It's literally rewriting your personal narrative and building a new, stronger sense of self. So far, our discussion has really laid out the universal foundational principles and tools of cognitive therapy. The thought record, challenging beliefs, all that. But Mind Over Mood goes a crucial step further. It meticulously delves into how these core principles are specifically applied to manage and alleviate common, often debilitating emotional experiences. Chapters 10, 11, and 12 offer highly tailored, actionable strategies for navigating the complexities of depression, anxiety, anger, guilt, and shame.
Yeah, this section of the book powerfully reinforces the idea that these pervasive, often debilitating emotions aren't just random occurrences or insurmountable forces. They consistently possess a clear, identifiable, cognitive component-specific thought patterns, interpretations that fuel them. And this understanding is incredibly empowering because it means they are also highly susceptible to targeted intervention.
Yeah.
Recognizing these specific cognitive aspects for each mood allows for applying highly effective, individualized strategies, moving beyond general techniques to precision tools.
Let's begin with depression. Chapter 10 unpacks this with remarkable clarity. The book explains depression often involves a very specific, pervasive pattern of negative thoughts, often called the cognitive triad. These are typically harshly critical thoughts about oneself. I'm worthless, I'm a failure, I'm no good. Extending to pessimistic thoughts about the world is unfair, nobody truly cares, life's a constant struggle. And crucially, encompassing hopeless thoughts about the future, things will never get better, it's entirely hopeless, there's no point trying. These thoughts are often intensely self-critical, deeply pessimistic, and tend to pervade nearly every aspect of one's experience, creating this suffocating mental environment.
Right. Given that cognitive profile, the strategies for depression logically build directly on what we've already explored. Cognitive restructuring is paramount, involving the diligent application of all those thought record techniques, systematically challenging those deeply ingrained self-critical thoughts, deliberately developing more balanced, realistic ones. However, beyond just changing thoughts, there's a crucial behavioral component: activity scheduling. Depressed individuals often experience this profound lack of motivation, energy, leading to significant withdrawal, reduced activity, which unfortunately creates this powerful negative feedback loop. Less activity means fewer opportunities for positive reinforcement or accomplishment, which in turn reinforces more negative thoughts, ultimately leading to an even lower mood. It feeds itself.
That's precisely right. The book presents Ben's weekly activity schedule as a fantastic, tangible example of breaking this cycle. Ben would meticulously track his daily activities and his mood ratings hour by hour over an entire week. What he discovered was a direct correlation. By consciously planning and systematically increasing activities that were either genuinely enjoyable or provided him with a clear sense of accomplishment, his mood significantly improved. This provides compelling evidence of how direct behavioral activation can directly influence mood and then, in turn, begin to shift thoughts, disrupting that vicious cycle of withdrawal and pessimism.
It's also important to underscore that mind over mood is comprehensive. It acknowledges that medication can indeed be a helpful adjunctive tool for managing depression, always emphasizing the necessity of professional physician consultation, of course. Furthermore, it highlights that proactively improving interpersonal relationships is another key strategy. Social isolation can significantly exacerbate and prolong depressive symptoms, making connection a vital part of recovery.
Okay, moving on, let's turn our attention to anxiety, a challenging emotion that Chapter 11 expertly dissects. The cognitive aspects of anxiety disorders typically involve this core tendency to misinterpret normal physical sensations or ambiguous situations as catastrophic, imminently dangerous. For instance, much like Linda's experience, a rapid heartbeat isn't just a physical sensation, it's immediately seen as an impending heart attack. Or social discomfort isn't just awkwardness, it's instantly interpreted as complete, utter social failure or humiliation. That kind of leap.
Exactly. So the strategies for anxiety are therefore multifaceted, targeting both the cognitive and the physical components. Controlled breathing techniques are absolutely vital. For managing those acute physical symptoms, the racing heart, shallow breathing. Simple, systematic techniques like a disciplined 4-count inhale, 4-count hold, 4-count exhale, can help regulate the physiological response, calm the nervous system. Imagery is another powerful cognitive tool. It involves actively visualizing relaxing or successful scenarios, or even vividly imagining confronting the feared situation successfully, like Linda mentally rehearsing her flight before actually taking it. It helps desensitize the fear response.
And a monumental component for managing anxiety, particularly things like phobias and social anxiety, is overcoming avoidance. Avoidance feels incredibly safe, right? It provides immediate relief in the short term because you successfully escape the feared situation. However, the book brilliantly explains that avoidance actually maintains and often intensifies anxiety in the long term because it prevents you from ever testing your fears, discovering the feared outcome might not happen, or that you can actually cope with it. The book strongly advocates for gradually exposing oneself to feared situations, often constructing a hierarchy of fears, moving systematically from low-fear activities to progressively high-fear ones. The compelling example of Juanita's public speaking anxiety vividly demonstrates this. She moved from low-fear activities, like speaking confidently to a small group of friends, to gradually escalating to giving a public speech to a large audience, thereby systematically desensitizing herself to the anxiety and building mastery.
It's important to acknowledge, as the book does, that anti-anxiety medications like tranquilizers can serve as a potential short-term or, in some cases, long-term tool for managing severe anxiety. Again, always presented with the critical caveat of physician consultation and collaboration with a qualified mental health professional, ensuring safe, effective treatment.
This whole section is incredibly empowering. It provides this powerful reassurance that even these deeply entrenched, painful emotions, which often feel overwhelming, intractable, can be understood, dissected, and systematically worked through with the right tools and strategies. Finally, Chapter 12 delves into 3 other common, often profoundly challenging emotions: anger, guilt, and shame. The book emphasizes that these emotions, much like depression and anxiety, are also fundamentally driven by specific thoughts, interpretations, and underlying beliefs.
Exactly. For managing anger, the book offers practical, immediate strategies. These include timeouts, the deliberate act of physically stepping away from a heated or anger-provoking situation for a set, brief period, typically 5 to 24 minutes, allows emotions to cool down, prevents impulsive, destructive reactions. Assertion training is another key skill. It teaches individuals how to clearly, respectfully express their needs, opinions, boundaries without resorting to aggression, reducing the likelihood of anger-provoking situations. And in relationships, couples therapy can be highly effective, directly improving communication, collaborative problem-solving skills, which significantly reduces the frequency and intensity of anger-triggering dynamics.
And for guilt and shame, the strategies offered are particularly insightful, often counterintuitive. One truly fascinating, visually impactful tool is the responsibility pie. This is a cognitive exercise where you literally draw a circular pie and visually represent the proportion of responsibility for a negative event, assigning percentages to all contributing factors: yourself, other people, external circumstances.
This powerful technique helps individuals externalize what often feels like this monolithic blame, allows them to accept their true, often only partial share of responsibility, rather than internalizing 100% of the blame. For instance, in Marissa's experience with sexual molestation, she used a responsibility pie to identify her father, his alcohol abuse, her mother for not protecting her, a complex factor, and her grandfather as distinct contributors. This helped her profoundly see she was not 100% responsible for the trauma, which began to alleviate immense, crushing shame. Similarly, Vic's guilt over credit card debt was significantly alleviated by seeing how his anger at Judy for bringing it up, the late hours he worked, the inherent nature of the debts themselves, all contributed to the responsibility pie, clearly showing he wasn't solely responsible for the financial situation or the resulting anger, fostering a more balanced self-assessment.
That's a truly powerful and liberating way to reframe and manage self-blame. The book also highlights the profound therapeutic power of breaking the silence. Openly discussing difficult, deeply shameful experiences with a trusted person can significantly reduce the isolating power of shame, bring it into the light. And then there's self-forgiveness, which the book clarifies isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about acknowledging one as a fallible human being who makes mistakes, accepting responsibility for one's true part, making amends where possible, and then compassionately moving forward. Finally, making reparations involves taking concrete action to correct past wrongs if possible, which can be a vital, empowering step in alleviating persistent guilt and fostering a sense of redemption.
This entire section really brings home the idea that these powerful, often debilitating emotions are not simply random occurrences or inherent flaws. They have clear cognitive components that can be identified and, crucially, addressed. This means they are highly susceptible to intervention and change. The book provides highly structured, actionable methods for each of these challenging emotional states, offering a clear path forward for anyone willing to engage with the material.
Wow, we've covered substantial ground in this deep dive, haven't we? From understanding that fundamental link between thoughts and feelings, to exploring practical tools, specific strategies for managing all sorts of challenging emotions. But the true, enduring power of mind over mood lies not just in its brilliant concepts, but in the very real, tangible transformations it helps facilitate in people's lives.
Indeed. The epilogue of the book provides this powerful, inspiring synthesis, meticulously revisiting the journeys of the individuals we've followed throughout our deep dive. Their remarkable progress serves as compelling evidence of the profound, tangible impact that consistent application of these principles can have. These aren't just theories, they are lived transformations.
Consider Ben. He courageously confronted and ultimately conquered his debilitating depression, learned to interact with his children, grandchildren in entirely new, more fulfilling ways. The book graphically illustrates his progress, showing his weekly depression scores on a chart, steadily, significantly declining over 14 weeks of therapy, moving from high incapacitating scores to minimal ones. It's a powerful visual testament to real, sustained improvement in his daily mood, his overall quality of life.
And Linda, once paralyzed by her panic disorder, through that systematic process of identifying, rigorously challenging her catastrophic thoughts about physical sensations, and then courageously practicing behavioral experiments like intentionally flying more frequently, she gained an incredible, liberating confidence. Confidence in her ability to effectively manage her anxiety, truly understand her heart health. She didn't just intellectually grasp that a racing heart didn't mean heart attack, she experienced it was anxiety. And crucially, learned the tools to control it herself.
What resonates with you most about these profound transformations? It's not magic, is it? It's the consistent, deliberate application of these deep insights. And then there's Marissa. Her transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She conquered severe, debilitating depression and recurrent suicidal thoughts, a profound, life-saving shift. She systematically secured her job by taking specific, difficult action. And most profoundly, she fundamentally shifted her entrenched core belief from feeling unlovable to confidently believing I'm lovable. Her depression scores, diligently tracked, showed significant, sustained improvement over 36 weeks, highlighting a deep, truly lasting, foundational change in her self-perception and emotional well-being.
This truly demonstrates that knowledge is most valuable when it's deeply understood and rigorously applied. These individuals didn't just passively learn about cognitive therapy, they lived it, integrated its principles into their daily lives, and the results speak for themselves, offering a powerful encouragement to anyone facing similar struggles. And finally, Vic. He successfully gained control over his urges to drink, leading to improved sobriety, significantly reduced risk of relapse. More broadly, he developed new beliefs, new behaviors that profoundly supported managing his anger, led to a dramatic improvement in his marriage. He visibly shifted his core belief from "I am inadequate" to "I am competent," seeing real, positive, sustained changes in his relationship with Judy, his own sense of self-efficacy.
So the enduring power of Mind Over Mood is crystal clear. It's not just a book, it's really a toolkit designed to equip you with practical, accessible, evidence-based strategies for transforming the irritants in your life, those challenging situations, distorted thoughts, overwhelming emotions, into pearls of growth, resilience, and profound, lasting well-being.
The book's teachings provide a clear pathway. They empower you to identify your thoughts, understand precisely how they drive your moods, learn effective, actionable coping strategies for managing difficult emotions, and ultimately embark on a profound, self-directed journey to change your life for the better, making you the architect of your emotional destiny. #outro.
So what does this deep dive into Mind Over Mood ultimately mean for you? Well, it has revealed a powerful, liberating truth. Changing the way you think can fundamentally, profoundly change the way you feel. We've explored foundational concepts like that interconnected web of thoughts, moods, behaviors, understanding how each element influences the others. We've delved into the crucial role of identifying those insidious hot thoughts, using the invaluable thought record, uncovering the precise moments our emotions shift. And we've seen the transformative power of challenging those thoughts with rigorous evidence, becoming a true detective of your own mind.
We've also walked through the process of developing alternative, more balanced ways of thinking that better reflect reality. We've witnessed how to solidify these insights and new beliefs by putting them into practice through real-world experiments and structured action plans. And we've highlighted the profound, lasting impact of delving deeper to address those underlying assumptions and core beliefs that shape our entire worldview. Finally, we've examined how these powerful strategies are specifically applied to manage and alleviate challenging, often overwhelming, emotions like depression, anxiety, anger, guilt, and shame, offering tailored paths to healing.
It's all about empowering you to take active charge of your own emotional landscape, recognizing your agency in shaping your inner world. Now, here's a thought to truly mull over as you go about your day. Consider how much of your daily experience, your joy, your stress, your peace, is shaped not by events themselves, but by the silent, automatic, often unquestioned conversations happening inside your own mind. What profound shifts, what surprising discoveries might you uncover if you truly started listening in and questioning those internal narratives, even for just 1 week?
Remember, there's always more to learn, and engaging with multiple perspectives invariably enriches understanding. This deep dive is truly just the beginning of your own exploration into the incredible, often untapped power of your mind to shape your mood and ultimately the trajectory of your life. We genuinely encourage you to reflect on these principles and consider how they might apply to your own unique experiences, empowering you to cultivate a more resilient, balanced, and fulfilling emotional life.